Is Seth Chalky, and today we're going to be going over chapter 4.1, Probability. Now, I chose probability not because of how easy it is, but because of how important it is to the overall analysis of statistics. Probability is the chance of something happening, or whereas the odds are of something not happening. Both are very important in probability and statistics overall. Today we're going to be going over probability and how you can find it, what are some of the uses, and what you really do with probability. So there's a few things to understand before we get started. First of all, probability always falls between 0 and 1, always. The closer to 1, the more likely something is going to happen. The farther from 1 or closer to 0, the less likely something is going to happen. If an event has a probability of 1, which is 100%, then it will happen. Now, if you have something more realistic, like a coin toss, let's use a quarter for example, and let's say we're doing a coin toss. If you flip the coin, there are two possible answers: heads and tails. Each has a 50% chance of happening because there are two options out of a total of two. So one of them happening is half of it, which is 50%. So there's a 50% chance or a 50% probability, a 0.5 probability that you're going to get heads or tails. If you flip a coin 100 times, you will get, on average, 50% heads and 50% tails. Now, this is very important for understanding how certain things happen, and knowing in statistics when something is going to happen is very important because it allows someone who is analyzing the data to know if something is more probable or less likely. Now, there are three main approaches to finding probability of an event: the relative frequency approximation of probability. So we have the relative frequency, the classical approach, and the subjective probabilities approach. Now, another thing before we continue on to remember about statistics and probability is always round to 3 decimal places. This is extremely important and comes into play as we find out probabilities. Now, there's something called the law of large numbers, which states as the procedure is repeated again and again, the relative function and probability of an event tends to approach the actual probability. Meaning, the more times you repeat an event, i.e., the more times you flip a coin, the closer you are to getting the actual probability. If you flip a coin 5 times, there is a chance, although low, you'll get 5 tails or 5 heads, meaning the probability is skewed. However, if you do the test 100 times, the chances of getting the proper probability are much more accurate. So that's the law of large numbers. Now, it's important to be able to identify significant results within probabilities. If something is only 5% more probable, that's not very significant compared to something that is 25% more probable or even higher. And the higher event of actuality, the higher event of probability, the more chance of it happening. And this is what's analytically important for statisticians to understand and to know. So, identifying, sorry for my messy handwriting and bad spelling. Let's see here. And I'm just making a mess. Identifying significant results with probabilities is when the value is extreme, we can assign it to incorrect or correct probability. For example, 50 to 1 is an extremely significant result. That's 2 to 1. There's double the likelihood of this event happening over the other one. Now, odds are the chances of the event not happening. And this, of course, can just be found by subtracting the probability of an event from 100. So if you have a 50% chance of getting heads, the odds are 50% of getting tails. And that basically is what probability is and why it's important to the overall analysis of statistics. So now that we've gone over the basics of probability, it's time to look at some basic questions and go over the answers and outcomes, and we can see how probability is used in real world scenarios. The first question we're going to look at is number 1. There's a 70% chance of snow tomorrow. Now, how do you express this in a way that's understandable when talking about probability? Well, it would be 0.70, and that is the probability value. So if there's a 70% chance of snow tomorrow, the probability value is 0.70, which, as we know, point 0.7 or 0.70 is very close to 1, which means the likelihood of snow tomorrow is very high, which makes sense because, as we know of percentages, 70% is close to 100%. Question number 2. The sun will rise tomorrow. Now, this is a statement, obviously, but we know this is a fact. So the probability is 1. It will happen. Now, for number 3, this one's a little more complicated, but it goes to show really how far probability works. A bag contains 6 green marbles, 3 red marbles, and 5 blue marbles. If a marble is randomly selected, what is the chance that it is red? Well, what do you have to do here? First, you have to figure out how many marbles there are in general. Well, we know that 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 5 is 14. So we have 14 marbles. Now the question is asking, what is the chance of getting red marbles? We know that there are only 3 red marbles. Now we know from what we know about probability that means there's 3 out of 14 probability that it will occur, which equals 0.214 probability value, which is not very high as we can tell and is much closer to 0 than it is to 1. So the likelihood of getting a red marble out of a bag of 14 marbles is quite low. Now that we've gone over some of the questions, hopefully you have a better understanding of probability and we can continue on learning statistics all together. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of your class.